Palestine, the Israeli regime continues its genocidal operation in Gaza. The authorities registered more than 28,800 killed and close to 70,000 people injured to date. In Venezuela, the government ratifies its commitment to the Geneva Agreement as the only way to solve the dispute over the Essequibo territory. The 37th African Union Summit opens in Ethiopia with the motto, Educating an African Suitable for 21st Century. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Palestinian authorities released an updated casualty report on the latest genocidal onslaught by the Israeli regime. Dozens of Palestinians were killed and wounded in the last 24 hours. Israel has killed more than 12,000 children in Gaza. The total number of dead has already exceeded 28,800, and the number of wounded is close to 70,000 people. In both cases, it is mainly women and children. The neighborhood of Al-Zaytun in the southeast of the Strip and Al-Sabra in the center were targets of most of the occupier bombardments. The Zionists also continue to harass the Nasser hospital. The United Nations confirms the rapid deterioration of the situation in Rafah. More than 1.2 million people are dying of hunger. The UN humanitarian agency described the Palestinians trapped in that city on the border with Egypt as starving and terrified. According to their figures, between February 9th and 15th, only 20 trucks with humanitarian aid entered the Strip. They affirmed that the hunger levels are so alarming that people throw themselves on the transports and eat what they can. They also denounced that Israel is blocking in the port of Ashdod a large shipment of flour destined for the Strip. The Palestinian Minister of Health warned Friday that the Nasser medical complex in Khan Yunis is being subjected to an ongoing crime of genocide by the Israeli occupation army. The government official accused the Israeli forces of aiming to destroy the Nasser hospital and getting rid of everyone inside by using every possible means, including airstrikes, detention of the medical staff, forcing the displaced shelter in the facility to leave, and blocking its medical services by cutting off its power. The minister stressed that the Nasser medical complex constitutes the backbone for providing medical services in the Gaza Strip, so stopping its work was a disaster in the full sense of the word. The minister slammed the Israeli army's aggression and described it as a barbarity and war of genocide waged against civilians, patients, institutions, medical centers and hospitals in Gaza and the West Bank, including Jerusalem, and as a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law, international law, and all humanitarian norms and conventions. In London, hundreds of thousands of protesters gathered to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. The protests answered the call for a second global action day for Gaza, demanding world leaders to take immediate action to stop the killings of civilians and allow the unconditional entrance of aid. Demonstrators also denounced the UK's complicity in the Israeli genocidal war against Palestinians. In recent weeks, Israel and Hamas have put forward rival proposals to end hostilities and exchange hostages and prisoners, with Hamas calling for a full ceasefire and Israel backing an extended truce. The first 7-day truce in November saw the return of more than 100 hostages and the release of more than 200 Palestinian captives.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that we're all here together, all for one cause, and just to speak up for the people of Palestine, to basically demand a permanent ceasefire, because that's what we need now. We need to be the voice for Palestine. This has been going on for too long. Too much oppression has been going on for too long. It didn't start on the 7th of October. It started way before that, in 1948. So today we are here to speak up for the oppressed, because if we don't, then who else is going to?
In Canada, forest wildfires continue despite the winter season in the country. The fires started in what was a record fire season at the end of last year, continue to burn even through the country's easing midwinter period. According to experts, there has been a phenomenon in which the forests continue to burn despite being covered by snow. Specialists warn that in the last 10 years, these fires have become common in Canada, where they last for up to 6 months. Scientists warn that fires could continue into the spring, meaning an earlier fire season in the country. Chinese authorities issued several cold wave warnings for coming days in which a drastic drop in temperatures is expected. According to the National Meteorological Observatory, most of the northern provinces in the country will register a decrease of between 12 and 20 Celsius degrees in coming days. The forecast predicts that the cold wave will gradually move southward, so temperatures throughout the national territory will vary considerably along the week. The observatory warned about the impact that this meteorological event could have on agricultural production, so authorities urge the affected departments to do a good preventive job and undertake measures to mitigate losses due to disasters. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. On the 58th anniversary of the Geneva Agreement, the Venezuelan government ratifies its commitment to this legal instrument as the only way to solve the dispute over the Essequibo territory. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez expressed that this agreement calls to guarantee coexistence and legality to solve the dispute over this territory. Rodriguez declared that Guyana has opted for provocation and threats to set up armed aggressions against Venezuela with a false victimhood. At the same time, she denounced the hostile and military declarations of the Guyanese and U.S. governments to attempt against the sovereignty of Venezuela.
Venezuela denounces and rejects the hostile, militaristic and arrogant statements by the Cooperative Republic of Guyana that, under the guise of a false victim and openly and frankly violates both the Geneva Agreement and the Wild Declaration, in complicity with external factors to this controversy.
The Executive Vice President also denounced a violation of the Geneva Agreement by the Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
Militaristic Likewise, the recent visits and declarations of high-level U.S. security and defense officials for equipment, training, and cooperation in military maneuvers with Guyana constitute an open threat to the tranquility and peace of Venezuela and the Latin American and Caribbean region.
Also in Venezuela, the President Nicolás Maduro activated the CREATE project Viva Venezuela, Mi Patria, Long Live Venezuela, My Dear Homeland, to enhance, preserve, and disseminate the country's traditional values. The event was full of cultural activities that began with the presentation of various traditional dances and songs, and also included the participation of different Venezuelan performers. The creation of the program was announced by the President on February 4th, when he emphasized that the initiative is important for the people, particularly for the children of the homeland, because it has to do with the rescue of the values, music, songs, and dances of the country. The mission will work in coordination with the project Cultura Corazón Adentro, created by Commander Hugo Chavez, and will incorporate musical and cultural groups.
Today, a project is being born, an idea, a dream, a utopia. A great mission of a new generation, born from strong and fierce criticism, born from the necessary self-criticism, born from renewed hope, born from you, born from the proposal to rescue and put in the foreground what is ours. What is traditional, native, popular, our great mixed-race culture.
The Dominican Republic Center for Electoral Promotion and Advisory Services will perform a post-electoral inspection of all computer equipment used in next Sunday's municipal elections. The Central Electoral Board issued a statement indicating that digitalization, scanning, and transmission devices for electoral results will be verified, and based on these, appropriate measures and actions will be taken. The entity also rejected the request of opposition parties for a forensic and random audit to be conducted on the equipment before the election, since it is impossible to do so due to the current stage of the electoral process. Over 8 million citizens are summoned to the polls this Sunday to elect 3,849 positions, including mayors, deputy mayors, councillors and their substitutes, directors and deputy directors for municipal districts, and voting officers. In Panama, environmental groups are threatening the executive with once again take to the streets to protest delays in the closing of a copper mine whose contract was ruled unconstitutional earlier this month. Environmental experts have warned about no audits being conducted and that an environmental recovery plan has been abandoned. There is also concern over the fast approaching deadline for the company to comply with the $108 million bail set to cover for the expenses of the whole process to close the mine, owned by a Canadian company.
Among them, the alarming absence of necessary audits of site stability orders and of concrete decisions regarding an environmental compliance bond for $108 million that will expire on March 7th.
A New York judge ruled Friday against Donald Trump, imposing a $364 million penalty over what the judge ruled was a years-long scheme to dupe banks and others with financial statements that inflated the former president's wealth. Trump also was barred from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation for 3 years. However, the judge backed away from an earlier ruling that would have dissolved the former president's companies. Trump vowed to appeal. Attorney Alina Habba and Trump lawyer Christopher Kais said the verdict, if upheld, would damage the business environment. Judge Arthur Engoron issued his decision after a 2.5-month trial that saw the Republican presidential frontrunner bristling under oath that he was the victim of a rigged legal system. Engoron concluded that Trump and his co-defendants failed to accept responsibility for their actions. We have a financial break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Financial break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. The 37th African Union Summit opens in Ethiopia with the motto Educating an Africa Suitable for 21st Century. The African Union governments will debate in 2 days how to build resilient education systems for greater access to inclusive, lifelong quality and relevant learning in Africa, with the participation of 30 countries represented by their presidents and 5 with vice presidents, in addition to African government heads of state, 6 leaders of invited countries, heads of the United Nations, and 13 international organizations will speak about the current situation of the region. AU Commission Chief Musa Faki Mahamat said unconstitutional changes of government have multiplied in total defiance of the entire political and legal system on which the Union was founded.
Unconstitutional changes of government have multiplied in total defiance of the entire political and legal system on which our organization was founded. Never since the creation of the African Union has there been such a high number of transitions following unconstitutional changes of government in Africa. Our failure to counter such a phenomenon is obvious. Not only have social inequalities widened and injustices multiplied, but hegemony and the absurd desire to settle our differences by brutal and futile force prevail publicly before everyone's eyes.
The Democratic Republic of the Congo President Felix Antoine Tshisekedi denounced the involvement of Rwanda in the country's security conflict. During his speech, the president proved Rwanda's involvement in the constant insecurity in the east of the country and the plundering of its wealth, while requesting the assembly the end of hostilities by the March 23rd movement, an organization that he affirmed has the support of Kigali's government. Tshisekedi asserted that there will be no dialogue until the rebels withdraw from their positions. Meanwhile, Angola is elected as a member of the African Union's Peace and Security Council. This was confirmed by Angola's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Tete Antonio, highlighting that his country was the most supported among those proposed and will be part of Peace and Security Council for 2 years term 2024 and 2025. The election also included discussions on other matters such as administrative and financial issues. In Senegal, President Macky Sall has pledged to hold presidential elections as soon as possible. The President's office made the announcement following a decision by the Constitutional Council to annul postponing elections until December. As previously reported, the elections, which were to be held on February 25th, had been called off by Parliament following a request from the executive, a move that sparked a serious political crisis and violent protests, which left at least 3 people dead and several injured. Greece and France blocked the sale of unmanned drones and artillery pieces of Turkish origin to the Ukrainian armed forces with European funds. Authorities of these 2 European countries expressed their opposition to the fact that the sale of armaments supplied to Kiev would mean a financial benefit for the Turkish military industry. This despite the fact that a large part of the $148 billion in armament was destined for the U.S. military industry. According to local media, the reason behind the decision is to increase the production of arms by the war industry in Europe. The blockade follows a meeting of defense ministers of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in Brussels, where they discuss increasing ammunition production to allocate part of it to Ukraine and part to the stockpiles of countries that supply arms to Kiev. In Italy, farmers from several organizations staged a major protest in Rome. Demonstrations was called on by the Agricultural Redemption Organization from a campsite located in Via Nomentana. Dozens of tractors rolled through the streets of Rome, heading for the mouth of Truth Square in the heart of the capital. This mobilization adds to other demonstrations held this week against government and European Union agricultural policies. The farmers say they are committed to defending their rights and that they will not back down until the government meets their demands. Chinese authorities highlighted the contribution of Beijing-Moscow relations to global stability. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi pointed out that the relations between China and Russia meet the common interests of the 2 countries and contribute to the strategic stability of the Asia-Pacific region and the world. Wang Yi also recalled that the relations between the 2 countries are developing in accordance with the principles of non-alignment with blocs, non-confrontation, and are not directed against third countries. The statements of the Chinese Foreign Minister came within the framework of the Munich Security Conference held in Germany from Friday, February 16th to Sunday, February 18th, with the attendance of some 50 heads of states and government and 100 ministers. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.